Sky News Studios in Melbourne, live. The Bolt Report. Now, Andrew Bolt.
Welcome to the show. Good to have your company. Coming up, Mark Latham. And Julie Bishop donates her high heels to a museum. They say that her shoes are a symbol of female solidarity. But is that true? More later. But first, a couple of things today that might make you feel we're getting better, more moral. Or do they in fact show we're getting more stupid? Today, hundreds of school students went on strike and went to Parliament in Canberra to demand politicians do more to stop global warming.
I'm striking because climate change is threatening my future and our politicians are refusing to acknowledge it.
I'm striking because climate change is going to cause natural disasters to be more frequent, more intense and more devastating.
Now, the Prime Minister wasn't that impressed that children were lecturing when they should be learning.
What we want is more learning in schools and less activism in schools.
But the Greens and Labor, they loved having children tell them how to run the country, what the country's proper energy mix should be. And they passed the motion in the Senate to support the student strike. And yes, thousands more students across the country are going to strike on Friday. Now, I could, of course, try to teach these children the science. Tell them, kids, don't panic. There's actually been almost no more warming this century. And the slight warming we did have before that seems to have actually given Australia a bit more rain. And a lot fewer cyclones too, plus record grain crops, not just here, but around the world. And that's got to be good, right? But these students wouldn't have heard that science, I'm guessing, not at school and not from those politicians in Canberra who say, yes, 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 kids, global warming could indeed kill us all. Here's one of these politicians, new independent MP Kerryn Phelps, in her first speech in Parliament this week, spreading global warming fear and falsehoods.
We have to think about the human experience that will result from failure to take action. The imminent disappearance of island nations like Kiribati or Tuvalu, altered food supplies. Altered
food supply? I mean, as I said, grain crops are actually increasing and around the world, new records. And this claim that these, Kiribati and Tuvalu, island nations like them disappearing imminently, false again. The most authoritative research from Auckland University, and backed up by recent French research too, says decades of measurements of low-lying atoll islands, Pacific, show that 86% of them remain stable in size. 43% actually increased. They're not drowning, they're waving. Now, Kerryn Phelps is a doctor, claims to believe in the science, yet she ignores the science and says total falsehoods about global warming. And not one journalist corrected her, not one. Why would that be? So, what chance do you think these kids will ever learn the truth about global warming? And especially if they go on strike, think they really know all they need to on that subject. You see, they know they've got the right opinion, the good opinion. So who cares about facts? OK, now I said there was a second thing today that might make you feel that we're getting more moral like these children. But on reflection, maybe just more stupid. The Banking Royal Commission has been devastating for the banks. It's made them look horribly greedy. I mean, charging even dead customers for financial advice. Well, the publicity's made them very gun-shy. I mean, very, very eager now to seem good. And then along comes these activists, like these children, their teachers coaching them, their politicians cheering them on, feeding them falsehoods. And also think of those other older green activists who are hounding banks to stop them lending money for coal projects, even though our coal exports earn this country $60 billion a year. Billion dollars a year. That's money for things like, well, schools. Whether those kids are actually in the schools, well, that's another question. But look, get these young activists on social media and then point them at these nervous banks whose billions of dollars of loans actually keep our economy ticking. Point these kids at these banks and watch those banks fold. I want to show you footage from the Royal Commission today. They were grilling ANZ Bank boss Shayne Elliott. Now, as you listen to him, you may think, banks lending with a social conscience, that's got to be good. But I want you to then reflect, as you listen, are banks, when they're making these big, very important lending decisions, actually too scared now of being criticised by clueless activists, foolish politicians and even mere school children?
We decided, if we believed that we were here to shape a world where communities thrive, they're largely to do with the way we would bank the big tobacco industry, for example. We'd already made decisions around our involvement in banking around parts of the defence industry. So we had any of the sensitive, anything that's sensitive, companies involved in water, companies involved in any kind of land usage. We talk to and have higher expectations of our institutional customers in terms of their thinking, at least, about the environment.
Are you saying that you do not permit some of those entities to bank with ANZ?
Yes.
And that was the tobacco organisations, was
Yes.
it? Any others?
Not in the particular, not in kind of whole industries, but certainly we have already made statements around people who operate in coal-fired power, what standards we would apply. You know, so we don't exclude there, but we certainly have emission standards.
Shunning lending for coal-fired power stations. That's our cheapest power, our most reliable one, the kind that these children now want shut down. And the banks, yes, kids, no worries. These children, I know they're good at heart, but what do they really know? And what's to become of us when even our banks buckle to the opinions of the ignorant?